Welcome to Northwest Profiles, a look at people, places, and events of interest in the inland Northwest.
Bear tracks in the snow. A mother polar bear and her 2-week-old cubs sleeping and nursing in the cold northern lands of Manitoba, Canada, where a brisk wind can bring temperatures plummeting to minus 60 degrees Fahrenheit in an instant. Recording these events are 2 Spokane women, nature photographer Alice Garland and Guild School Foundation facilitator doubling as videographer and snapshot photographer Faris Charbonneau.
We have this love, this passion about nature, and I think also this passion to educate people.
I think many of these species aren't going to be around forever, and that pulls me a lot, like to the polar bear.
With the love of nature as a common bond, Alice and Faris have formed a friendship around observing animals together.
We got together through the Junior League.
Right.
We were going to meetings together, riding together, and talking about what animals she was feeding. And I lived on the lake not very far away. So I was photographing geese at the time, and we found out we had a lot in common.
I love to feed birds and watch birds and squirrels and animals, and I guess I've always liked to observe wildlife, and that kind of brought us together with just our love for nature and our love to watch animals and observe them, and then Alice had this great filming background, and so it kind of was contagious.
Alice, a professional still photographer by trade, with a myriad of wildlife images and numerous calendars and publications, has won acclaim with some of her photographs.
When Alice first said, you know, why don't you come on a trip with me? And I said, oh, Alice, I'll do anything. I'll carry your backpack. I'll help do all your film, whatever you want. So one day she put her backpack on. Of course, it's about as big as I am. And I said, I don't think I'm carrying your backpack. You're on your own. I'll get my own camera and I'll come with you.
In their first trip together, they traveled to Churchill, Manitoba, a town built right on the migration route of the polar bear to its feeding ground near Hudson's Bay.
We would go out in the tundra buggies every day for like 8 hours, and we were out, I think 8 or 9 days we were up there, and photographing all day as much as we could see.
The tundra buggies, this was like a hotel on a train. These are, 8-foot, 9-foot tires, and you're up off the ground. And so you can see the bears, and you can see the Arctic fox running around, and they had a bunkhouse cars, and they had a dining car, and so it was great. Every day we had our own individual vehicles, so that about 6 of us on a vehicle, and then we would go out and film. So it was a fun experience.
Their next adventure together took them on a 1-month excursion south to the Antarctica region to photograph and learn about penguins and seals.
We'd always planned that was someday we wanted to go there, and it ended up that it came, pretty quickly. We decided to make the decision to go because it's changing so quickly. The number of tours that are coming in now and the big boats and all of the people, we wanted to go there when it was still pretty pristine. And I love the idea that we were going to see, 7 or how many species? 9 species of penguins. We were going to see leopard seals, and the idea of being on a ship, and when you were out at sea time, was kind of like going to school. They had wonderful people there who shared everything from the biology and the reproduction cycles of penguins, and all of the information. So you were learning so much about what you were going to see, and you had that knowledge firsthand, fresh in your mind when you're getting ready to go out to film.
On their most recent trip, they headed back to Manitoba to Watchie Lodge, a polar bear denning site 75 kilometers south of Churchill.
And they den December, January, and February, and have their babies the end of February. And this is what you go to see because they're like maybe a day out of the dens, and they're like little puppies, tiny.
We were very lucky to see this wonderful mother bear nursing. And it's probably one of the most beautiful sights that I've ever seen. I mean, to see this giant, magnificent animal so calm and these big paws and just so graceful. And then this time to see her with these little tiny cubs, and her paws are so huge, and how gently she picks them up and they climb over her head and, you know, chew on her ear. And there were two cubs. We called them Mutt and Jeff because one was always off running around and not doing what he was supposed to be doing. And just about the time the mother was having some time with this wonderful little cub, the other one would go, "Oh, it's time for me," and she'd jump on its head.
From an area more than 100 yards away, photographers click away. Alice usually carries a minimum of 60 rolls of film for a week's worth of shooting.
You have to have a big lens.
Yeah, because she has to have a 600.
I'd say 500 to 600 millimeter.
Yeah.
And I use an extender on that to fill the frame. So you need a long lens.
You know, probably the hardest on this last trip, you know, keeping the batteries and the camera heads from freezing.
The electronics froze up on mine, but the batteries were working, so I couldn't use it. People were asking for pocket warmers from us.
We brought
give us your
bags full.
warmers when
Please.
you leave.
Yeah, can we have them, please? And it's amazing how many people go on a trip like this who don't plan. I mean, they just go.
Thin
They have
little jackets.
Thin little jackets. They're not
came
dressed
there.
for the weather, and their faces weren't covered. And you know, your eyes. I mean, your eyelashes. At one point in time, even though we were covered, our eyelashes were frozen. You couldn't open your eyes. You know, so you're trying to film, and you can't move your hands, and you can't open your eyes. But pretty soon you adapt.
This is where we are, over in Washington State. Here are the Great Lakes, and here is Hudson Bay, right up
I
here.
think this is a side that we didn't know that was going to come, which is a side I love because we are so lucky to be who we are and what we're doing that we can share it with kids. It makes it kind of fun.
I have a passion and I love watching the wildlife, and just to be like an Arctic fox behind a bush, watching that mother bear with the baby, it's taking a part of nature and getting to watch. It's so lucky, you know, we are so lucky to be able to go watch.
We're interested in the same things, and we're wanting to learn ourselves. So I think that's the thing. We like to listen and talk and say, well, now what do you understand, or what do I understand? And so we're a pretty good team.
If you have a story idea for Northwest Profiles, send it to KSPS TV, 3911 South Regal, Spokane, Washington, 99223. Northwest Profiles is a presentation of KSPS Public Television.